Aloha everyone, welcome to another RuneScape discussion video. For this video we're going to talk about Godwars Dungeon 3, what some of the rewards might be or what I would like to see for rewards, and what we can expect out of the content. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the video, let's go!
Cats is the illest. What you talking about, Willis?
Alright guys, keep in mind when you're answering anything I ask here in this video that in a previous Leads Q&A, Mod Osborne had said or hinted that this new Elder Godwars Dungeon or Godwars Dungeon 3, whatever you want to call it, may not fit the mold or the formula that you could expect with a typical Godwars Dungeon. In some form or fashion, they are experimenting with what it means to be a Godwars Dungeon. That's about as much detail as he went in with it, so it's still very vague. We really don't know exactly what that means, if that's only particularly referring to the design of the dungeon or the gameplay of it, or maybe even the reward system. That's all up in air. So I don't have any actual specific predictions for what we can expect with this dungeon in terms of rewards, because the simple fact that they are being experimentative with it could mean any number of things. But I will take the opportunity for this video to talk about things that I think I would appreciate as rewards from this content. First and foremost, tying into previous video, I really think they should take this opportunity to do something with the magic skill in terms of its combat capabilities. That can mean a number of things. As I said in the previous video, ability codexes is one of the ideal ways to do it, whether that be entirely new magic abilities or simply mutated versions of ones we already have. Either route could work, or maybe both as well. Another thing is maybe we can finally get a magic pair of gloves. We have Nightmare Gauntlets that are very powerful for range. We have the Gloves of Passage, although they're pretty much useless, but there is technically a gloves for melee, but there isn't one for magic. I definitely think this is an opportunity for them to fit in something with magic that does have some kind of modifier or does change one of our magic abilities in some way. What that is, I don't know, but it's probably going to be a basic ability, considering the other two gloves for the other two styles affect a basic ability. You know, possibly Dragon Breath, since Nightmare Gauntlets affect Snipe, and then for some reason in my mind, I don't know, I consider Dragon Breath to be the equivalent of Snipe, even though they don't behave at all alike. But if they did create a magic style gloves that affects a basic ability, Dragon Breath is the one that I would think would get some kind of benefit. Maybe it gives the Dragon Rider amulet effect so you don't have to wear the necklace, or something like that, I don't know. Either way, my point is to say that, once again, Godwars Dungeon 3 is an opportunity to improve magic, to bring it on par with the other two styles. In terms of other rewards, if we're looking at traditional Godwars dungeons, we know that all of the bosses have a common drop that is shared among all of them, and then they have a unique drop that's considered like a modifier that affects the common drop. In Godwars Dungeon 1, the common drop is the Godsword shards to make the Godsword blade, and the unique drop is the different hilts. Looking at Godwars Dungeon 2, we have the Dormant Anima Core armor as the common drop, and the crests modify that armor and is unique to each boss and changes the armor based on which crest you add to it. I think it's likely, if Mod Osborne wasn't talking about experimenting in terms of rewards, I think it's likely that we're gonna see something like this again, where all of the bosses drop some kind of base drop, and then we add to it with one of the unique drops from any one of the generals. What that item is, I have no idea. Godwars Dungeon 1, it was a weapon. Godwars Dungeon 2, it was an armor piece. We could potentially see maybe a shield or a cape, but I am not sure. If they do go with a shield or cape route, I think it would have to have some kind of neat benefit or effect when worn in order to make it viable or sought after. Reason why I choose a cape or a shield is we haven't had a best in slot cape or shield for a very long time. Cape more so, if you ignore the whole comp cape thing and you just look at, you know, fight kiln capes. And then the last good shield we got was Rise of the Six. So I can definitely see those being added with some kind of needed benefit to justify them existing. That or it could disassemble to a new type of component, because with the previous God Wars Dungeon, we saw some of the most powerful invention perks added to the game. We've gotten Aftershock, we've gotten Lunging, which is now made even more powerful with the new spear from Archaeology, and then Kuroming, which has been made massively powerful with the new Greater Ricochet ability. Even if this shield or cape or whatever this item is doesn't disassemble into some new components for a new ability, then whatever the other uniques that those bosses drop could be our avenue for those things as well. I don't know, let me know what you guys think about it. Do you think they're going to go that route again? Specifically speaking, the God Sword model or Anima Core model, whatever you want to call it? Or do you think they're going to strip that entirely, going with something completely different, and the reward system from these bosses are going to be unlike anything we've ever seen in terms of a God Wars Dungeon style piece of content? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Again, like I said, I don't have any specifics because this could be so diverse. Anything could happen with this release, but considering the things I have said so far, what kind of things do you think we can expect in terms of the reward system out of this God Wars Dungeon? Do you like any of my ideas? Do you hate them? Whatever your opinion is, I'd love to hear it. Now, having said that, I want to talk about what we think will be the design of this God Wars Dungeon as well as the gameplay. Because I think when Mod Osborne said that they are experimenting, I do think that he was more specifically saying that as opposed to the reward system, but again, we'll see. Traditionally speaking, a God Wars Dungeon is a large area that has a ton of NPCs that are all warring and constantly in battle. There are 4 different encampments associated with a specific god on each corner of the battlefield. In these encampments is where you'll find the 4 generals, which are the 4 typical bosses with the God Wars Dungeon. Generally on launch, we have these 4 bosses. However, sometime down the line, they add a 5th boss, which is more powerful than any of the previous bosses and has always introduced best in slot gear for whatever item it drops. Next introduced the Pernix, Torva, and Virtus, where Telos introduced the tier 92 two-handed weapons. Considering that we do know that they are going to be experimenting with this formula, how much do you think they're going to still adopt from the previous iterations of God Wars Dungeons? Do you still think there's going to be a giant area with a bunch of monsters warring together? Considering this is a Elder God Wars Dungeon, it will be very curious because I don't, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not super close to the lore, I'm not too familiar with any of the Elder Gods having worshippers. So I don't know who would suit as their followers, but then again, they are Elder Gods, so they could simply create life on a whim and create an army if they were ever to go to battle with one another. Also, do you think we're going to even get 4 generals with this launch? Reason why I asked that is because we only have 4 Elder Gods left, considering, spoilers, Ma is dead, which I suppose is not necessarily a disqualifier, but it is something to consider. If they do go with 4 generals and they include Ma, I think it is likely that the 4 generals will be Full, Wen, Bic, and Ma, and then later down the line, the Telos or next boss will be associated with Jas. That seems most likely, in my opinion, if they do go with the 4 and then 1 additional later routes. If they don't include Ma, I still think they could go with this where they just release 3 bosses, Full, Wen, and Bic, and then further down the line they release the Nex or Telos associated with Jas. And even having said that, do you think we're going to get the typical kill count needed to fight the boss? Are they going to need specific skills where you needed like 70 in various skills for God Wars Dungeon 1, 80 in God Wars Dungeon 2, perhaps 90 in certain skills to enter the boss arenas for God Wars Dungeon 3? And also, do you think there's going to be a reputation system similar to what we've seen with God Wars Dungeon 2? Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there. Love to hear if you have any cool ideas about what we can expect, not only in terms of the rewards, but in terms of the gameplay and design itself of the dungeon, considering we do know that it is going to be experimental and may not necessarily follow to the T the formula of a God Wars Dungeon. With that, I'm going to wrap up the video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you are not subscribed yet and you want to stay up to date on all things RuneScape related, hit that subscribe button. Anyways, I appreciate you watching. I am out. Aloha.